Hey, welcome into the Stinkin Truth Podcast. Mark Schlereth alongside Mike Evans. Thank you so much for making us a part of your day. Please subscribe and do all those things. Share it with your friends, family, whatever the case may be. Mike, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing great. Got some news that I find interesting. Not really interesting because it's not shocking to anybody out there watching.
Right.
But, so the TV season just wrapped up. You know how the TV season starts in the fall with all the new shows and runs through, and then you get into the summer and it's a little bit of a dead period.
I think they did the Emmys just recently. They awarded a bunch of Emmys and things of that nature.
So for the 13th straight year, the number one rated primetime show in America is Sunday Night Football.
Correct.
Far and away blows away the next closest dominating show. You got to go back 2005 to 2011 for 6 straight years. American Idol was the number one primetime show.
So it'd be the Sunday night. Was there a Sunday night?
No, because the Sunday night started after that. So every time, since the start of Sunday Night Football, it has been the number one rated.
Sure. Okay.
And it's also like out of the top 100 shows of the year, like 90 of them are NFL games. So no surprise the NFL is king. Do you see anything that could potentially bring the NFL down?
Ooh, that's a great question. Bring the NFL down. Well, first and foremost, the NFL is our game. It's America's game. So I don't see America letting go of us and our sport. Like, no matter how bad football gets, no matter how many people attack football, it's still better than soccer. So
preach.
Yeah. So we're not gonna let that happen. We're not letting that go. But is there anything that could knock football off its pedestal? Is it that Teflon? Because I've thought over years, like if the game, a quality of game continues to diminish and continues to lessen, will people just get to the point where they're like, it's not what it used to be? But listen, the people who remember it, or people like me, will be dead by the time that happens, right? And
yeah, I guess so.
We're raising the softest generation that has ever been raised. And they look at NFL football right now. They don't have the context of what it used to be compared to what it is now. So they look at it like it's incredibly
Do you think the average football fan can recognize quote-unquote bad football?
No, probably not. And you know what? In bad football...
what is bad football?
Yeah, what is bad football? That's a great question. Like, what is bad football? Like, I can recognize the lack of good football across the line of scrimmage in today's game, but the average fan doesn't look at that. The more it looks like fantasy football, the more it looks like the video games you grew up watching, the more intrigued you are by the game. The more it becomes fantasy football, even though the quality of the game to me is diminished, but the more it becomes like fantasy football, or like most of the kids that I sit down and talk with now as I'm broadcasting a game, most of the kids didn't grow up, and this is no fault of their own, but they didn't grow up watching NFL football and learning NFL football through watching the games. They grew up, their understanding of NFL football came from the Madden game. I mean, these are kids that play in the NFL that have no sense at all of the history of the game. The NFLPA did this. It was great. They did this video asking players, current draftable players, about guys that played their position that were the best of the best at their position only less than a decade ago, about those particular players.
Asking wide receivers about Jerry Rice, for example.
Yeah, asking a DB about Darrelle Revis. Say, hey, this guy was one of the best that's ever played the position that you play.
Yeah.
They used to call him Island. Island? Yeah. They used to call him Island. His nickname was the Island. His name was Revis Island? No. That was his nickname. Like, no clue. Never heard of him. Like, never heard of Darrelle Revis. So, it's just different. So I don't know. Like, us old heads, right, will look at NFL and look at all the, the rules to protect players and the lack of violence over the middle and how you can't hit anybody and blah, blah, blah. And on it goes. And we'll, stomp our feet and, and our fists and we'll get angry about it and stuff. But the truth of the matter is, honestly, and this, I say this sincerely, the NFL does not care about you. You're old. They don't. They're cultivating the next generation of NFL football fans that grew up watching video games, and the closer you can make it look like a video game, the better off we are.
So for all the complaints about the wussification of the NFL, you don't think that the newer, younger generation of football fans even recognizes that the game has gotten soft?
No, because they're all wussies. Like, they're wussies. They're wussies watching Wussy League.
Oh, jeez.
Right? So do I think – no, I'm being serious, though. Do I think it's truly affecting the NFL? No, it affects guys like you and me. We're going to go, oh, come on. That's not a penalty. How many times have you watched a game where you're like, come on, let them play? That's not.
All right, so if the wussification of the NFL isn't going to hurt them, what about the idea? What if the game ever got so violent that the grassroots of football was affected to the point where moms and dads out there said, sorry, you're not going to play youth football. That ends up affecting high school football. That ends up affecting college football. And maybe it brings down the NFL. Is that a possibility?
I think there has been a lot of that with the concussion issues and the head trauma. And there have been a lot of parents that have looked at that and said, hey, man, I don't want my kid playing. But the percentage of kids that aren't allowed to play is so minuscule that I don't think it'll affect the overall number. And then, you just face it. The schools that tend to be in lower income areas, and that it's a way out. It's a way it's a way for kids to make a better life for themselves and for their families. And so I just don't think that that's going to affect it. Like, hey, the hobnobs, I say this game is too violent.
Well, even at the suburban, more affluent high school level, you know what they're doing? All these kids now are practicing in those big concussion helmets, and so great lengths there have been made to make the game safer, and kids are still going out for football.
A lot of 7-on-7 leagues in the off season and everything else.
I think the biggest takeaway is the NFL.
Well, the NFL,
at least for now, is invincible.
Right. The NFL responded to the concussion issues by changing a lot of rules for safety, settling a concussion lawsuit, everything else, and I'll give them credit. They have done a good job with that stuff. They have put protocols in place. Some things still slip through the cracks occasionally, but they have put the protocols in place to make the game, at least on the surface, seem safer. Yeah. And I believe all that. And all the, I can go on and on and on forever about the concussion issues because, and I'll just give you a little, my own personal synopsis. Like, I believe that there's enough plasticity in the brain and connectivity in the brain to circumvent certain injuries, right? Brain injuries. I believe that you have that ability. I think the thing that bothers me about the research, the thing that bothers me about the concussion, the narrative that's been out there is if you play football, then you're going to do irreparable brain damage and eventually going to freak out and, and fall off the deep end. And I just think that is such a misnomer. And it's such a disservice to the game. And there are people out there that hate our game. They hate our game. And they'll do anything. To disrupt it. And you know what? And like I always said, and I've said this to Roger Goodell and whoever else will listen to me, fuck them. Fuck those people. You don't like our game? That's fine. You don't have to. We're not going to appeal to everybody. It's the greatest game in the world. We don't need to appeal to everybody. But back on the concussion aspect of it, Mike, I do believe that, like, you look at concussions, what they don't look at is they look at football as, football equals concussions, concussions equals CTE. But they don't look at when you're done playing the game and it's over for you. Was your identity in being a football player? Because when your identity gets taken away from you, you're going to struggle with depression. How does that affect brain health? How does addiction to opiates affect brain health? How does overindulgence in alcohol affect brain health? Then you couple that with whatever brain trauma you've done to yourself with a football helmet on, and you say, well, we've got not only that, but now we've got, we mix in alcohol and mix in opiates and mix in depression and mix in. How does that all affect brain health? And how does that affect guys rolling into the future? So I think a lot of the research, me personally, and I'm not a doctor, but me personally, I think a lot of the research is tainted toward, from people that don't really care for our sport. And so that's why I say screw those people.
Well, NFL ratings, TV ratings continue to be high. They continue to be through the roof. And so with the schedule out, it's always fun to look at the nationally televised games.
Sure.
And who's getting the lion's share of the game. File that away for a second. The teams with the most primetime games thus far: San Francisco, Dallas, and the Jets, all with 6 primetime games. You okay with those teams getting the bulk of the nationally televised games?
So the Kansas City Chiefs, who are 2-time back-to-back Super Bowl winners, have won 3 in the last 4 years or whatever it is. So they don't get the bulk.
I think that might be more a case of CBS saying we're not going to give away those games. Jim Nantz is calling 8 Kansas City games this year. So I think that's more a case of CBS saying we're protecting our
So he already knows Jim Nantz already has a schedule?
Yeah, you have yours?
No. I don't. No, I don't.
You don't have your schedule?
No. See, Tom Brady has some games, right?
Some games, yeah.
I think Greg Olson won an Emmy.
He won the Emmy for the best analyst. And
Best game analyst.
He's getting bumped to number 2 and taking, what did I see?
It's like a $7 million
$7 million pay cut.
Good for him. Hey, man, congratulations to Greg. That's awesome. That is awesome.
That's awesome.
Emmy. Awesome. You know what you have to, you know how you win an Emmy? The first step in winning an Emmy, you have to actually be nominated for an Emmy.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you fishing? Are you fishing right now?
No. I've been in the TV business for 23 years. I've never been nominated. I guess it's not. I guess it hasn't worked out real well for me.
So when they say it's just an honor to be nominated, that would apply to you.
Yeah, that would.
I've never been nominated. Just being nominated would be
16
awesome.
16 years at ESPN, 7 years at Fox.
Just give me one nomination. I don't even have to win the damn thing.
No,
just give me a nomination.
I don't expect to win anything. Just a nomination for crying out loud. No, that is. I mean, great for Greg to win it again, and then to move down to the number 2 role and take a pay cut. I mean, but the thing is, in Fox's defense, if you will, if I'm going to defend Fox and defend the situation, like, is it fair? No, life ain't fair. I mean, that's just the way it works. But this was an agreed to situation well before it ever happened.
Yeah.
When they signed Brady years ago and he went back to playing, it was an agreed to situation. So now it's just coming to fruition.
I think Brady's
kind of knew.
I think Brady's going to be good at it, honestly.
Do you?
I really do. I've seen enough of this guy when especially the more that he's moved away from the Patriot way of doing things. I think we just got so caught up in watching Brady within that button-down, paranoid Patriots way of doing things that since then we've seen his personality come out a lot more.
Yeah.
And I think he'll be great on TV. I really do. I have no doubts.
You have no doubts.
No doubts.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any reason to doubt him either. I think you know me. I'm a huge Tom Brady fan.
Yeah, you still haven't washed the cheek that he brushed up against.
I would
last
just
time you saw him.
I'd like to be his Ed McMahon. in the number one booth with
Yes,
him.
sir.
Whatever you're thinking is correct, Tom. You know, every now and again, he throws me
For
a
some
little.
of you, Google Ed McMahon.
Right.
That's all we can tell you.
Every now and again, you know, he throws me a little bone on the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, what do they do there? That's a trap, Tom."
You mean the new Tony Siragusa?
Right,
Why
yeah,
not?
right.
Why not? It worked well for
Yeah,
Goose,
I'd be
right?
eating hot dogs in there.
Which teams who did not get as much national TV
yeah,
attention
yeah.
would you like to see more of? So who are the teams, the interesting teams out there that aren't getting as much fanfare?
I probably could have done with less Dallas Cowboy games,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But you know, I don't know how much of that. I know the Cowboys. You put the Cowboys on TV, they rate. So I understand how that works. And maybe it's my old Redskin days that the Cowboys just make me go, oh my gosh, these guys, right? They just Cowboys. So I could have done with less Cowboy. Like for me, the Detroit Lions.
Yeah.
I think the Lions, and I got to do a bunch of Lions games last year. The Lions are a damn good football team. I mean, I think probably one of the three best offensive lines in football. Them in Philadelphia, and I could probably find somebody else in there to put in that category. But really good offensive line, unbelievable running backs, 1-2 combo between Gibbs and Montgomery. Really good receiving core. Great. You know, I mean, they've got two guys that would be in the Sean Payton realm of definitions. Two guys that would be jokers.
What is that? What is a joker?
A joker is a guy that probably plays a position but is kind of positionless. So, you know, for them, it's Gibbs, the running back, because that guy can line up and play wide receiver. He can do a lot of different things for you, and he could be one of those guys that, you know, is in third down, blitz pickup, but can also catch the ball out of third down, split him out wide, have him run regular routes like Christian McCaffrey would be a joker as well. I think Gibbs can be that guy. And then Sam Laporta. Sam is just Sam not only can play tight end traditionally, but he could probably line up in the backfield as a fullback. He could motion back and forth. He could be the backside tight end if you want to get into a heavier personnel package like a 12 where you've got a front side tight end that's a real Y and him as the movement guy as the F. Like those guys just give you opportunity to really dictate to a defense or to make a defense declare how they're going to play you. Hey, man, are we going to play this guy in nickel? Are we going to play this guy in base? Are we going to play this guy in dime? Like, what do we think? What do we think you're going to do? And then you can basically play off of that stuff. You have a package off of, if they play us in base, here's our base package. Here's how we're going to attack base out of this personnel package. Hey, man, if they play us in nickel, here's how we're going to attack them when they get in a nickel or in dime. And so it gives you the opportunity based upon what they do, how you're going to attack them.
So you're talking, but I get where you're coming from. You're talking about Detroit and the interest in Detroit from a football X's and O's standpoint. I'm just thinking more also about just storylines, right? Like Detroit is compelling because of their history, right? They've been just so down and out for so long.
Dude, there's no better storyline than Dan Campbell.
And Dan Campbell, right? So along those lines, some of the other teams that I think I'd like to see more of, Chargers, Jim Harbaugh. I'm fascinated by Jim Harbaugh. I love Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh really interests me. There's just a lot about him that I find interesting.
Intriguing.
Chicago. I think with what Chicago's done, moving on from Justin Fields, bringing in Caleb Williams, there's a lot of boom or bust talk about Caleb Williams that I think makes them very interesting. So
what do you think Chicago, like I've seen a lot of people say, watch out for Chicago now. And I will tell you defensively, under Matt Eberflus, defensively, even last year, you know, they started a couple of years ago. I remember doing a game and looking at all their, you know, their defensive secondary, some of their linebackers, some of their young players, and talking about how these guys are really going to grow together and making a lot of growing pains early as a bunch of rookies playing, but they're going to be really good. And about midway through the season last year defensively, I thought they were outstanding.
Yeah, but the storyline for them is what they bring offensively.
Yeah.
Caleb Williams,
Dunze or whatever his name is, right?
Keenan Allen.
Keenan Allen is freaking an unbelievable player. DJ Moore. DJ Moore is 1,200 yards a year. He's a running back after he catches the ball.
So they're interesting.
Yeah. But do you think in that division, do you think like I told you, I've seen a lot of analysts go, oh, watch out because they're gonna make some noise in that division. With Green Bay and with Detroit, you think they're gonna make any noise in that division? You think they're gonna make a huge jump, a leap, or a playoff?
No.
They become a playoff team? Because I don't see.
No,
them
your message to Chicago is you're hoping that you are interesting, entertaining, and lose a lot of close games. Because you don't think they're going to all of a sudden contend for the division.
I don't think they're going to be a playoff team.
So
I don't think.
Yeah, you want them to be competitive.
But they will be. They will be, especially early. The Jets. Do you have any problem with them giving the Jets 6 primetime games?
No. Aaron Rodgers is must-see TV.
That dude's a lightning rod.
He's a lightning rod.
He's great.
You see him come out this week and say, well, I did talk to Robert Kennedy about the idea of being a VP, but it was either, politics or football, and I still like playing football.
Yeah.
And he also said he doesn't apologize for all the podcasts that he goes on and everything like that, but he says once season comes along, it's all about football. And you've dealt with Aaron a lot.
Sure.
So for the message to the Jets fans out there, the idea, the concern, hey, Aaron Rodgers, he's kind of flighty. He's all over the place. He's on this podcast, that podcast. He's talking about this conspiracy, that conspiracy. You've been around him long enough to know that when the football season starts, does he get locked in?
Oh, yeah. He's, sitting down with Aaron and talking football, he's one of the most intelligent players that you'll talk to. And he has got his just football knowledge and the things that he thinks about, the things he'll say in a meeting that make you go, gosh, I've never really thought about it that way, or I've never really heard anybody else talk about it that way. There's a lot of that stuff with Aaron. I'm a huge Aaron Rodgers fan. I just think he's an incredible player, no question about it. But he's an incredible person. Like, he's a really thoughtful, intriguing, engaging, even if you don't agree with his politics or some of the things he does, he's really top notch when it comes to just having a conversation and at least making I always said this about kind of radio shows and TV shows and things. Like, I want to be interesting, right?
Yeah.
And there's one thing about great kind of radio hosts or great radio personalities or television personalities, they make you think. Like, you can have an entertaining show, right? And you can come in with a thought and you can be a part of that show, or you can listen to that show and you can leave that show being thoroughly entertained. But the bottom line is that show never makes you go question your opinion. Like, to me, great shows or great personalities make you question the way you think about a certain topic. Like, I could come in thinking about, this is the way the running game works, and there's nobody who can change my mind. And all of a sudden I listen to something you say and go, oh, wow, I never thought about it that way. Maybe I better reassess kind of my understanding of this topic. And that's one of the things that Aaron does. When you sit and meet with Aaron, he'll make you think about, I never really thought about it that way. That makes sense.
Well, Harrison Butker's comments have certainly made people think and react. And with the Chiefs getting back to work, Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid were asked about, the possibility of distractions or anything like that. And Mahomes talked about how there's certain things that he said that I don't necessarily agree with, but I understand the person that he is, and he's trying to do whatever he can to lead people in the right direction. And that might not be the same values as I have, but at the same time, I'm going to judge him by the character he shows every single day. Andy Reid said, quote, we're a microcosm of life, meaning inside the locker room, NFL locker room. Everybody is from different areas, different religions, different races, and so we all get along. We all respect each other's opinions, and not necessarily do we go by those, but we respect everybody to have a voice. Is that maybe the ultimate beauty of a sports team, a locker room, the idea that you have all kinds of diversity, and yet some of the things that society has trouble with, sports teams and locker rooms have no issue with, because they are such a huge melting pot of different personalities, different backgrounds.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you're all there for a common goal.
Right. You're all there for a common goal, and you all understand that we have, we do come from different areas. I think one of the great things about it is you actually sit down and you listen to somebody's opinion, as opposed to just saying, oh, it's misogynistic, or, oh, he's homophobic, or, oh, this, that, or the other. You'll sit down and say, all right, well, explain yourself, right? I mean, I don't have full context because I didn't watch the whole speech.
Mm-hmm.
I saw bits and pieces. And a lot of people out there that are criticizing the speech have only watched bits and pieces of the speech. And so if you're talking about traditional values, I have a lot of traditional values. It was important for me to marry somebody with like values, right? Because that was important, for me as a kid. And so anyhow, I look at that stuff and I think, in a locker room, you're going to have thick skin, because as much as I have traditional values, knowing that he's getting grief for what he said, would I make fun of him? Absolutely. Like that's part of the beauty of it, is like being in a locker room and having that melting pot and being a part of that, is that you learn to love each other regardless of opinions, regardless of where you come from, as opposed to just going, well, this guy's a bigot and he's a hypocrite and he's this, that, and the other, and I won't have a conversation with that guy. You're like, man, I don't necessarily agree with your opinion on whatever, but I'm going to rely on you on Sunday, and I love you as a brother, and and that's the beauty of kind of being a part of a locker room.
Are there some topics in a locker room that just is understood, don't go there?
Yeah, I mean, they always say don't talk about religion, don't talk about politics, don't talk about somebody else's money. Like those are the three things that usually, but the political things come up from time to time. That happens.
But why is it that the same kind of topics that can rip apart a business, an office place, a family, a living room, a dining room table, that kind of stuff, why do sports locker rooms tend to be more immune from that? Being ripped apart like that.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think because ultimately in a sports locker room, you learn that there are far more things that connect us than divide us.
Okay.
And so, you may come from wherever you come from. I come from Alaska, I mean, you may come from Georgia. I mean, we couldn't be further apart from, geographically speaking. I come from a fairly affluent family. You may come from a really poor family. You know what we both want? We both want our kids to get great educations. We both want our kids to be loved and supported. We both want them to have opportunities. There are a lot more things that connect us than those little geographic things that divide us, that make us different. And ultimately, I think you learn that, and then you have to rely on one another. I always say this about offensive line play, where to be great, to be a great group, we have to be great together. I can be great individually, but if the guys beside me aren't any good, it doesn't really matter. We're going to have a terrible offensive line. And that we can have a guy from, I look at offensive lines that I played on. I got Gary Zimmerman, from Bend, Oregon, right? I've got, Mark Schlereth from Anchorage, Alaska. Got Tommy Nalen from Boston, Foxborough, Massachusetts, total masshole, right? I got a guy like Brian Habib from Ellensburg, Washington, and then I got Tony Jones from Georgia somewhere. Like, all of our experiences are completely different growing up, from different economic backgrounds and, social backgrounds and geographical backgrounds and all those things. But for us to be great as a group, we have to bond together and rely on one another. And when you have to rely on one another, you start to realize that the fact that you're Democrat and I'm Republican, or it doesn't really make a fucking difference.
Right.
Like, we got to come together and we got to figure out how to block these
And I would think it's the same thing that for people who are in the military and things, you probably would be nodding your head and saying it's a lot like that as well, that we have too much in common, we have too much at stake, we have to rely on each other so much that all that other stuff at the end of the day isn't really worth
bickering about, or being angry
or being
about
divided
it,
about,
being divided about it. So I think that's one of the beautiful things about a locker room. And if we as a society could function like a locker room, it'd solve a lot of the issues that we have.
I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. If society could operate more like a locker room, a team, I think you'd see a lot less issues.
You know, and part of it is you got to have thick skin.
Yeah.
Right? When somebody says something that's abrasive, you can't flip out, and go total ridiculous. Yeah, like you got to go, oh, okay, that's abrasive. That why and then
if you're Harrison Butker, you got to know walking into the locker room, there are going to be people like Mark Schlereth there who are just can't wait.
Oh, can't wait.
Oh, you would have a field day with him, wouldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
I can only imagine some of the things that you would say that I'm not going to have you say right now because I don't want you to get canceled. So.
Right. Yeah. I've stopped myself several times, going, I don't want to go down the Butker route.
Yes,
don't pull it. It'll become, what do they call that? Becoming a verb. Don't do a Butker.
Don't do a Butker. don't do a Butker.
Yeah.
Oh, but I could tell you'd come up with some good ones. But
no
we'll
question.
leave it at that.
All right, well, it sounds good to me. Yep. I mean, just leave it at that. Hey, for everybody involved in the Stink Truth Podcast, we appreciate you watching. Please hit the subscribe button, do all those things. For Mike, I am Mark. We'll talk to you guys next week. Hey, for everybody involved in the Stinky Truth, we thank you so much. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure you don't forget to give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel for more content just like this. If you want to see more of our videos, you can also be sure to check out our playlist. Let us know exactly what you think in the comments below. We appreciate you guys so much for being a part of that.
Don't forget to follow us on social media to stay up to date on our latest updates. Links are in the description. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.